All right. Welcome back to episode 9 of Casual Disasters. This is Madeline Sells. Today, I have Hilary Love on the podcast. I don't even know how many years we've known each other now, but we're
old, so
14 as fuck,
20,
is what I was going to say.
Over 20 years.
Yeah. And it's really exciting because we originally, like, you're the reason that Casual Disasters started because we were going to make a podcast together. And it like influenced why this entire thing exists. And she's on the podcast because she doesn't live here now. She's in Denver, Colorado, but she's home visiting because we literally, you guys, just walked off the Bloomsday course on Cinco de Mayo 2024, the coldest
making history.
Yeah, day Bloomsday has ever seen, ever. That's insane. So Hilary, gosh, I don't even know where to begin. She is currently doing a totally different job, but when we, I guess, went to college, what was your undergrad actually? I don't even remember.
International business.
What?
In Spanish. Yeah. Because they didn't have an international studies program. I was like, I'm going to move overseas and do cool stuff. And then they were like, not an option, so you can do international business. And I was like, all right, that's going to be sick. I'm going to lead a CEO across the world. And then I graduated, and I was like, I just want to help people. So I worked at the public defender's office.
Oh, that's right, in Portland.
Yep, instead of doing anything with my degree.
And then you went to graduate school in Arizona.
Yep.
In higher ed.
Later. Yep.
And then you worked and moved to Colorado. I was going to say Boulder.
Yep.
CU is where you started that
10 years in
education
June is Colorado.
fun job. And then totally shifted gears. I don't even know your title now.
Yeah, now I'm like a corporate girly with my partner manager title and all the fun things. But I think you and I think we really, really got close in our adult lives in terms of the job stuff, having very similar jobs and seeing crisis every day and going through graduate school the same 2 years. We were in graduate school the same 2 years. And I just think that all of that was just really special to have somebody that I've known before all that going through the same things at the same time.
Yeah. And we met our freshman year. I was actually trying to remember, I was telling someone last night, how we actually met. And I was like, well, we were both athletes and we had to do that summer weightlifting camp. And I didn't know anyone because I was coming from Catholic school to a public high school for the first time, which was a huge shift. And then I was like, yeah, I don't even know. We were just we were in the top 3 heaviest weightlifters at LC for females. And then, and it just stemmed from there. We have lots of history. Yeah. And then, this reason the podcast started was we were both in pretty abusive relationships. And then I think we were talking a million hours a day, processing out. I got out of my relationship before Hilary.
A month.
Yeah. And now it's been 2 years plus for me, and you're probably at 2 years right now.
Yeah, and the 2
today?
years is the anniversary trip of being in Spokane and the healing journey.
Yeah, which I think is it's insane. I always talk about this. I didn't know what narcissism was or abuse or I think a lot of people would assume because as people who went to grad school and did counseling or mental health type fields, they're how did you end up going through that? We're both really intense people, both neurodivergent. It's I don't know how we were able to sustain anything like that for very long, actually.
Well, and it's crazy because you can recognize it now, especially you recognize it right in other people or other situationships. But when you're in it, even then you're if someone was relaying the actual events of your life to you, you would have been that's horrible. But when you're in it, you don't see that at all.
No.
But they're amazing.
Even getting out of it before you, my situation was 5.5, almost 6 years, when you were getting out of it and watching your pull back, or almost reverse back to the person. I was no, Hilary, do not go back. But I was nobody can tell you that when you're in the process of trying to exit a situation. Of that abusive cycle, which I don't know. It's really interesting to me, even though I talked about this on my very first episode, I should be an expert in these things. And somehow I'm attracted to these things, being the kind of caretaker I don't know, like counselor to my partners, which is like really not well. And I like joke about it.
I think one of the things I don't know if this is my Instagram algorithm or my therapist sometimes, right? They're one and the same. Like
Instagram.
have said things about being like, yeah, actually all of those strengths and make you who you are, like being intense, being passionate, like being really intelligent, being emotionally intelligent, all of those things are positive attributes, but those are the things that make those type of people attracted to you. That's what makes you a target, because you want to make things work. And when you love somebody, you're really intense and you're going to ride or die and all of these things. And it's like
loyal, committed. We're both very passionate. Like I ride or die for my partner.
Yeah.
So that's a really attractive, appealing thing. And I never realized, when you were talking, like I was thinking back to like, oh, it must be because I'm weak or I'm insecure. Like, and what I realize is like a lot of people will see like powerful people and they're like, oh, that's attractive, that's hot, I'm going to break them. Like I want to conquer like dismantling this powerful female. Like,
I mean, we've talked about that because like the relationships that we were both in that led us to this horrible place were like both people we'd met at work. So they had seen us on the job, seen us been passionate, seen us advocate for students, seen us go to bat, seen us do all of these things. And it was like, right, I think that's a factor where it's like they saw you at your true self and the thing that you went to grad school for and care deeply about. And they saw you arguing for those and for those people. And it was like, this person, I want to break this person who is in here kicking everyone's ass.
Yeah, I think the most, like the draw in for me and anyone who's ever met us, like when I'm really excited or passionate about something, like you're going to hear about it.
Yeah,
like everyone's going to know.
You're not going to not hear about it.
Nothing, actually, when I think about casual disaster, nothing is casual about me at all. Like, and nothing is casual about you. I'm like, even dating now, I'm like, I can't be casual. No. Like, I don't even know what that means.
I can't remember what it was, but I was talking a while ago, and it was somebody, and I was like, no one's ever been like, Hilary, did I meet her? I don't remember her. It's like, no, you fucking know. It's
wait, you have to, do you remember that time that someone said I was like not memorable and you're like, you're the least unmemorable person. Yeah.
It's like, wait, was she really quiet in the corner? It's like, oh, Hilary, I remember her.
She's intense.
She told me her life story and I just met her.
Yeah, it's like, I was, when we were walking down here with Hilary's now partner, like, I was saying something like, yeah, when you meet us, like, it's not really chill. There's not like a chill topic. Like, there's nothing that's not on the table. No. Like, nothing that I feel is like too Debbie Downer that I can go from talking about like the scariest, saddest thing, which other people are like, wow, my heart is breaking. That's so sad. I'm devastated. I can't believe you're talking about this. And then I'm like, and now
another margarita.
Yeah, no. And then I'm like, I'm having a great time. Why aren't you? Like, what? And they're just like, well, you just brought this really dark, depressing thing. I'm like, really? That's not even weird to me.
Speaking of dating, and it's like, that was always a conversation when people, of course, dating, when people would be like, oh, tell me about your family. And it'd be like, I don't know what to say, because like, do I tell them the truth and then they'll be really sad and I'm comforting them, or like, what do I fucking do? And it's like,
yeah, do I just casually drop like, yeah, for both of us, different really extreme things like my mom died, or oh wow, your parents divorced and were abusive. Wow, that's cool. Like,
yeah, but we've talked about this. It's like the crazy part is like that somehow on the apps. Speaking, we have to come back to like being on the apps for the very first time at mid-30s.
Oh, we're gonna talk about that.
But like attracting people who have had very similar life situations, right? Of like all the guys I went out with, it was like multiple guys were like literal orphans. Like both parents had died and had been through trauma and very similar things. And it was like, I didn't lead with that on my profile. Like, how did we how
Lost
did the
my
universe?
Mom, that's not like a fucking category you can click on.
It's like, yeah, I have PTSD from a sudden loss, and it's like, but how did we attract those, right? And you're like, how many partners? You're like, I have not had anybody that's an orphan, but you're like, but I've had so many people where it's like this traumatic divorce and this situation, and it's like, that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I attract a lot of Catholics, like, you know, not like currently practicing, which is really weird. And I'm like, that's not something I've ever shared on my dating profile. Like I'm Catholic, Reformed, or like dismantling the Catholicism practices. Like,
it's
you know, like
ideal date.
Yeah, nobody knows that I'm Catholic on Bumble. But like, I probably
they will know your life story. They will know it within 2 minutes.
Oh yeah, but you just talk. I mean, maybe via the DMs on Bumble, you'll
in 5 minutes
suddenly
I'll tell you
know, like, wow, Madeline was like this, and she did this, and she's been in therapy her whole life, you know. Like,
but I don't lead with it.
No, it's actually, yeah, I think like I attract very similar, like maybe that mirror neurons, like because we've experience similar life things. We're attracted. We're like bringing the same energy, but I don't think I've been that intentional about like people. I really do need someone to bring the same energy because I'm intense. Like there can't just be someone who's like, I don't know.
I cannot have a neutral person. This is what I would say with like
on the dating
my
app
or just in general, like my ex, like kindest person ever. But I literally many times I would say like, you would have the same reaction if I said like, I won $1 billion versus like, I have terminal cancer. I'm like, your emotions are just so flat, and it's like really difficult for someone like me where it's, you know, everything about me, but you know, like my heart is on my sleeve and I'm like, I'm so stoked about this. You wouldn't be like, oh, I didn't know you were excited. It's like, oh, you know.
Yeah, like how are you not dysregulated by the sheer like this pen is moved out of place, or like, you know what I'm like, you're not like pissed off right now. Yeah, it's like, but like
I'm like, do you not notice that conversation that the couple's been having at the table behind us that I know everything about? Yeah. Like you're in La La Land eating your steak. It's like
I'm about to give free therapy over here, like which just happens to me all the time. But I think that like my partner can't be not like I guess it's like sensory like vibe or like. And they just like feel things. They're like, I see this, I witness this, right. I have insight. Like if they are not, they're going to be like, you're fucking like so intense. Why are you feeling this? Why do you think this? Why are you like that person hates me? Like when I talk about, you know, RSD, like I constantly feel rejection. Yeah. And so like, and it's not about attachment. There's different like, you know, reactive attachment or
interest. Yeah.
I think there's like a difference with people with ADHD or like autism or whatever, like neurodivergent stuff.
Yeah, like I'm not having anxious attachment over this because I'm not even attached to this person. No, I don't know anything about them.
But
like,
they hate me. That's all I know.
Not even in like we've talked about, like not even in the beginning of a relationship. It's more just like this person that took my drink order, and I'm like, I'm not feeling anxious attachment because I don't need.
I don't even know you.
Regulate.
I don't need you to be my boyfriend or girlfriend or come home with me.
I'm rejected by you.
But like, you rejected me. You hate me.
I don't know why I care even. Maybe I hate you.
I felt like that's been actually an awakening, like for me. And then, like us being on an app, like everything about a dating app is RSD to me. Like, it's like, oh, I ghosted you. We're not talking. Now you're talking. Now we're here. Like, I mean,
is this normal? We don't know. Like we both have very false senses of normal, like you said, for different reasons. But it's like, what is normal? We've never been on a date until I was 35 years old.
So let's talk about that. So like both Hilary and I, wow. Okay, so we go back to high school. I feel like if I was going to tell the narrative or like story of like us, like both very independent women, like strong, athletic, whatever, just like a presence for sure. That's probably why we were drawn together. Yeah. We both start dating these dudes that are seniors when we're sophomores. So that was kind of like a bit weird. I don't know. We've always had this kind of aligning life. We're
especially with relationships.
We're off right now. we're coming back together. We can't talk about it, but that's fucking weird. We have not.
But we've like had very parallel like dating lives.
Yeah. So we both start dating these seniors, but prior to this, we were both dating gang members. Like we were like really drawn to this alternative like vibe like in high school, and then came back to like then we're like both dating seniors as sophomores, both a little wild, like testing alcohol and all these different things our sophomore year. And then from there, I don't know, we like both left for college still with our you had broken up.
Oh yeah, I was. There was one day, like I don't even remember, it was maybe a month before graduation, I was like, hold on, stop. There's like a flappers in the 1920s outfit walking into the video room.
That's the best part of the podcast room. You just get to voyeur.
But like
people.
I remember one day, it was not also a good situation in high school. And there was one day that I was like, yeah, just never talk to me again. And it was like maybe a month before graduation. And I was like, I'm good. Don't ever talk to me again. And that was amazingly freeing. But Madeline had differing situations and
I
reasons
stayed with
why
my
she
partner.
Couldn't and didn't. And like I remember you being at my house in the basement like, that summer and being like, you can do it if this is what you want, right? And decide like, because it's so scary to like tell somebody like, no, I might break their heart or whatever, and like deciding, is that right for me? So yeah, we kind of diverged there.
And then I think you were like dating different people, but then you landed your next like partner in the midst of me still being with my high school partner.
Sophomore
and then
year,
they like came back. They kind of like formed our next, like, even though mine was prior, like, I
Yeah.
feel like then we molded back to the same situation again.
Yeah, the comfort, the like,
Yeah.
just the like, not exciting passion, but just like
A good,
steadiness
safe person, yeah.
and comfort and things like that for a long. I mean, what? For me, it was almost 15 years. 14. So you were.
But you stayed longer,
yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
Then I got into my next relationship for like 5.5, 6 years.
Yeah, and we were both in that same ways of like transitioning out of these. I don't want to use the word boring, because not boring, but just this stable kind of like relationship to then this person where you're, it's like, was bringing all this passion
intense, everything I like didn't have prior, like, and also I can appreciate like that relationship for me personally, like my 14, like we grew up together, like we went through such horrific things together and like probably shouldn't have stayed together, but regardless we like kept pushing through. And now even when I see that person and we have such a good friendship, that I'm like, isn't that crazy? Like we did all these like mean, horrible things, but we were also like in our teens and then 20s, like we were growing up together. And so I can appreciate now, I guess, like maybe not thinking of him, and I hope same, like as a horrible person, more like this is what it was, like this is what it is, like it isn't, we needed to like grow. Anthony is here. He's recording next door. He was on the podcast like a month ago. He's like my last guest, actually. That's so funny. But yeah, so just appreciating like that person for what it is, instead of it being this like dark, shitty, like we hate each other, we did these horrible things, like we were teens, we were growing, we did shitty things to each other. But from that, like then I would go into like this really what I thought, like I'm getting this this person love bombing. I was talking
this
about
is what love is.
Yeah, it's like, wow, no one's ever been like so explicit with me and like saying how hot I am or like beautiful. And I was like, I've
been waiting my whole life.
Yeah, and if
for you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, both Hilary and
we
both experienced that. I mean,
yeah, and then I think to come out of it at like similar times and be having just the experiences, and then that experience of like both of us, like you said, it's like our independent women in the terms of like we both own our own homes, like without another person.
No
and
one
like,
helped either of us do that.
Right. It was like to then be able to be in a place where you're like, okay, I have an advanced degree. I can take care of myself. I make good money. I have my own home. And then it's like, I'm going to go on the dating apps. Guys will love this. They don't love this.
Yeah, I thought naively and probably like I need to probably like have some humility and humble myself, because when I got on, I was like, oh shit, like I'm 35 or 4 or whatever, and I'm single and I own a house and I have a master's and I'm badass. Like, who doesn't want to date me? Like, well, no one.
Spoiler alert, everyone does not want to date. Nobody wants to date you.
Yeah, I was like,
they want to ghost. I'll want to ghost you.
They don't
after proposing and
weird. This girl just like can't stop texting me. Her ADHD. She's saying weird shit. She's like TMI, like telling me weird stuff about her life, like via text, and I haven't even met her. Like crit block. Like, and I was like, oh fuck, I'm gonna have to navigate. Like, this person is only seeing this like one-dimensional piece of me, right? Like an app where you're just showing pictures. Who the fuck is that? Like, when people see my Instagram, they have such insane like reactions to like like who I am. They have no clue, and then I'm like, wow, that is what I'm projecting out. So I can't tell everything on Instagram. Like, there's some things I go through that, wouldn't you agree? Like, sometimes I feel this incongruency where I'm like, this is like a cool picture, I'm skating, or I'm doing this cool like outfit.
5 minutes ago I was breaking down, crying. Like,
yeah, but like I'm not live posting like, oh, I'm having a terrible time, I'm having like rejection, sensitivity, dysphoria today, and like feel like everyone hates me and my, like, and I'm gonna get fired and I hate my life. But
one of my favorite influencers, like, she posts a lot about like, I mean, she's like just super blonde. She was on a bunch of reality TV shows. She did all the things, right? So she's posting a lot of like, all the typical things you think. But then she posts a lot about being like, and I was like a picture of herself crying. It's like, I was with my therapist today and like this, and I'm really struggling with anxiety and I need to go home to my parents for the weekend. Like things like that, where it's like, I really appreciate. And she's like, I love that. And she's like, yeah, I feel like I wouldn't be true if I didn't say these things, right? And having like being her literal job as an influencer, like having that platform, like, I appreciate, because like, I mean, we talk about this all the time, like the mask you have to put on, not just like for social media, but for like work or things like that. When it's like
when it's like I'm also compartmentalizing. It's
it's like I'm giving you therapy, but it's like 5 minutes ago, like especially in those relationships, it's like, dude, I haven't slept all night. I was being screamed at. My eyes are like gonna pop out of my head, and it's like,
and now I'm counseling people when I'm like having mental breakdowns.
5 minutes before, literally, like being like, especially when the world went remote, like on Zoom, right? It's like, okay, how am I going to get my shit together in the next 1 minute for this situation? Like,
yeah. I mean, I every day would think about this, like I'm being like, I felt like disingenuous, but then I was like, this isn't about me when I come into work. It's about my students or like these children, like, which was still hard because I'm still a human being. Like I'm going through my own trauma, my own, which is, I don't know if we talk about that as much in that career field. It's like, yeah, I have to stand stoic and strong and hold space for everybody. And at the end of the day, like I still am human and like have a right and will be a mess.
Yeah, like
you know what I mean?
Abusive relationship or not, I think that's a really hard thing in like any helping profession, right? Is where it's like, okay, I'm here to help you, right? I'm here, I'm showing up, but like I remember I would reflect that a lot back on like students when they would be like, you weren't here yesterday and whatever, and like lose their mind and be like, okay, like just as you have had a situation that's caused you to miss class for 10 weeks or whatever it is, it's like, I'm also a human and I had something come up, right? Or there was a reason. Like we all have emergencies and we all have things we have to deal with. And like, it's because I'm a human just like you are that's why I wasn't here or had to leave at noon or whatever. And it's like, it's really hard to like be able to say that.
Yeah, to permit ourselves. Yeah, to like go. Like I'm going to be gone for 3 days next week. But I'm like,
for fun.
Yeah, for fun. I'm going to the Idols. I'm going to die, my favorite punk band. But like, yeah, it's like, yeah, I still have to do these things. Like because then I think too, and you can probably relate to this, like you're just meeting me. Like you don't live with me. I don't take you home. I'm like I don't know, like this part of you right now, you're in graduate school or undergrad or elementary, middle, high school, but you go home to a different, I'm just a very small piece of the puzzle. Like here when this is like necessary, but like I still am human. I have to go do these, live my life. And then when I'm here, I'm going to hold space for you. But codependency, like as someone who's like a recovering codependent, like that was really hard for me to be like, because I don't go home with my students in the summer, or I don't do X, Y, and Z with kids. So like,
and
I don't go home with them
where they are at home has a lot of influence, way more influence.
Yeah, than me. Like when I remember, what is it, like something, I can't remember the name of the book, something like Road to Babel. It's like this book about like breaking down mental health, like pieces of counseling and like the percentage of like what mental health therapists actually provide and change and shift of a human is very small. Yeah. Happenstance, family, all these other factors are actually much larger. The client has way much more power than we do over influencing like change in their life. And still we're regarded as like the shift agent and you're going to change agent and like do everything.
Like 1 hour a week, 2
maybe
hours a week?
month. Yeah.
Even in an IOP, it's like, okay, you're going to learn all these things, but then you're going to go home and make choices. And it's like any kind of like intensive therapy, like, rehab, anything like that. It's like, we're going to teach you these skills, but like you have to choose to employ them. You have to have an environment that allows you to employ these things. Like,
but don't you feel like somehow they almost put like a savior God complex on us? Like you're going to shift this student. You're responsible for this. And it's like, no, like that, first of all, these are autonomous, independent people. Like how powerless, like, and horrific is that to tell someone like, this counselor actually has more of a choice over your life and influence. Like, whoa, no.
Especially like in
empowering.
In higher ed, when parents would be like, okay, we've sent like they live on campus now, so you are responsible. And I'm like, it doesn't work that way either, Like, just because they live on campus does not mean now I'm their parent. I mean, that's the whole thing in higher ed. It's like, in loco parentis, it's like, we're not your parents now. Like, that other environment still has such a high influence. Like, this is not my responsibility. But I mean, the parent, when they would call, that's not how anybody sees it.
No. No one's like, oh yeah, like
I get it. I had him for 18 years and you've met him yesterday.
And like, you better fucking have figured this out for them. It's like, wait, what? Like, I don't know. You don't want me to figure this out for you. That's crazy. I can hold like, again, like I'm just like a little piece of this entire story here, like the tiniest piece. And I wish we actually told people, like, you actually are empowered, like you actually get this choice and have that freedom to decide, like, and change and influence your life. Like, I'm just going to reflect back to you, like maybe give you different ideas that you haven't thought about, but like, I'm not like, that's just creepy.
But you and I know this well in terms of like being in a relationship where like it's like people could tell me till they were blue in the face, like, here's all the facts that I see that you are in an abusive relationship, and it'd be like, nope, like, right? I mean, I remember we have talked about this with so many people where there's like behavioral change where you can see clearly from right what you feel is a rational perspective, and it's like, but I can't be frustrated with you because I know where I'm at when I just only want to hear the influences and the factors that I want to hear. Like, I'm not going to make a change. And so it's like, we just have to show up and be there when it's like, same thing you say to your students as I say to my best friends. It's like, I'm going to show up and be here for you when you're ready.
Because would you say you're kind of like also recovering from codependency, like tendencies?
Yeah. I think for me, it's very, like I said, I think it's interesting that we have similar responses now to like very different input factors. But like, I also think too, having been with somebody first, who again was a kind, nice person, but was like, we were so young. It was like, they were just always there. And it was just like, it became this codependent thing, not in terms of like the anxiety spikes you feel from the cortisol levels from a narcissist and all that, but just being like, okay, they're just always here. So this is just always a part of my life. They were very steady, and it wasn't, again, anything where it was like they maybe would not respond, but it was just like, I remember in the first couple of years, it was like they'd be out of town for like a week or something, and I was like, would feel like literally sick and be like, I can't do anything or anything like that. And it was like, what? Like, and so that I think just kind of takes over in terms of like, it's just always there. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to text them and they're always going to be steady. But it's just like, if they didn't one day, it would be like, dude, I would lose my mind. And then going directly into something where it was like a game, it's like really hard to be like not codependent. And I think you and I listen to We Can Do Hard Things, the Glennon Doyle podcast, which is amazing. And they have an episode on codependency that I think I talk to you about all the time, but it like stuck with me so much as like codependent. You think of it being like this traditional definition of like codependency, like I can't do anything without you or this or that. And it's like, no, it's like having that being like, I'm going to try and do things and say things to influence this other person's like actions. And like, because it causes me stress if they don't make the choice that I would make. And that is like crazy to me. And that's the part I think I'm working on.
The projecting out like how they should live, or
yeah. And if somebody's like, hey, I don't want to do this thing, is that it's like, okay, like rather than convince, even if it's a small thing, it's just being like, hey, actually there are things we do as a team and a couple, but like we are independent people, and like I'm not going to try and influence and be like, oh, if I show them these pictures, they'll want to go on this trip or whatever the hell it is. But it's like, that's codependence.
Oh yeah, that's for sure code.
And it's like, yeah, or I'm going to say these things to have them make this decision, and I'm going to be, like, you know, I'm going to be really like coercive or like about it, and like they're maybe not even going to know I'm trying to like convince them. And it's like, that's codependency, and that's like a different way that I've never thought about it before. We think of codependence, it's like, oh, Madeline can't do anything without this person, they're codependent. It's like, that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, that's like a part of it for sure, but it is that, like, I think that was like, yeah, I'm very like a lot of limerence, zealous, like I just project onto other people like this image of who I think they are, and then like when they don't fulfill it, kind of what you're talking about, then I'm like really like, you know, then that codependency thing can be triggered because I'm like, why aren't they fulfilling this thing that I thought like I knew of them? Well, you don't, like, and they're not going to just go on this trip to Mexico because you've always liked this and like, or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah. And it's like, of course, in a partnership there is compromise, but it's like things I remember on that episode, they were talking about like this woman that was like, her husband was an alcoholic. So she's like, I would do things to try and overcompensate for that person and make sure that like, okay, I know they're going to drink too much. So I'm going to set my night around like making sure I don't drink at all, or we have a ride, or we do these things. And it's like, when it becomes over the top, it's not just being like, hey, we're going to go out, it's your friend's birthday, like I'll drive home. That's a normal relationship. But it's like when it's like your whole life and whole thought process is around changing this person's decisions or things like that, rather than just being like, all right, you're going to do this and it's going to have natural consequences and I'm going to do what I want to do. And like,
yeah, that's a hard
good
one
luck
for
to
me
ya.
because I'm always like overly thinking of the future, which is pretty common with anxious people. And then, that like being like, okay, I'm going to think of every risk factor and like analyze and then pre-plan like for any factor that could go wrong.
And I'm going to put your life ahead of mine.
Yeah, all the time. I'm like, well, you want to go to grad school here. You want to do this. So I'll move my entire life for you. And it's like, whoa, no, I'm going to still be an independent person and like do things for myself.
Especially too with us, we're both in that way. It's like, let's be clear, the asterisk of this person hasn't asked us to do those things.
Oh yeah, wait a minute. No one has ever talked to us about this. We just decided they did. Like, it's like, I again project in like you want me to move back to Spokane for you to go to law school or whatever. Like and it's like nobody asked you to do that. Like it's like, well, we have to because we're gonna be together. So I'm gonna give up my entire life in the west side of the state, which I was living in Bellingham, for instance, and like, okay, well, you want to go to law school, then screw everything I'm doing. I'm going to come back and give up my entire vision and mission for you. And you didn't even ask me to do it. But I decided that we had to do it together.
Now that I'm thinking about it 15 years later, I'm annoyed.
Yeah, now I'm pissed. And you should have probably talked about that 14, 10,
but
like,
I
however
think what
many
you
years
said
ago
earlier is like, it's like being with someone when you're so young, you have no idea how to bring any of that up. Like, I don't know how to say like, hey, man, that's really great. You're thinking about doing this thing. Like, what does that mean for us? Or I feel some kind of way about that. It was just like, it's happening.
Yeah, I think I still struggle with, even though a lot of people would be like, oh, you're definitely confrontational. You like bring up stuff. Like when it comes to me though, like my personal life, like I really struggle to put myself in those vulnerable places to be like, hey, like I'm feeling a certain way about maybe like you moving there. Or like, what does that mean for you and I? Like, what is our agreement? Like putting myself out there is like really hard. And dating.
Well, we're the same way, is that it's like putting yourself out there. I think obviously being in a terrible relationship influences some of this, but it's like putting yourself out there when you don't quite know how to name it, I think is really hard. Is that it's like saying like, okay, I feel like until I bring this up, like in order for me to bring this up, I feel like it needs to be this perfectly thought out thing.
Yeah, I'm like, and I have to say it eloquently, and like I'm so
rather than
the data's
like,
been collected, the hypothesis is in, the research is back,
and here's all my facts. Rather than just being
I'm going to court today.
I feel some kind of way, like, and I think in a healthy relationship, that's a place to be, is where it's like, I feel some kind of way, and they can maybe help you uncover and all of that stuff, rather than feeling like I have to have this perfectly thought out thing, or I'm gonna get reprimanded.
Yep.
If it's not perfectly thought out, because they'll poke a hole in it. And it's like, well, in a healthy relationship, they're not there to poke a hole. They're here to say like, oh, why do you feel that way? Like, let's talk about this, rather than being like, you have to feel like you have like you said, go to court, have a specific argument.
Yeah, I do feel like I'm going to trial, and I have to have all my evidence in before I like bring up how I feel. Like they're going to tell me how I'm wrong.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, I don't want to like be told I'm wrong today and like argue my feelings. So I'd rather just avoid.
Right.
And I think that's been really like dating has humbled me a lot. Like just being on dating apps and just, oh my God.
How do you think you would have done dating? It's hard because I can only see myself in my 20s with the identity of this other person at the time. But like, how do you think you would have done dating like 10 years in your 20s?
Yeah, I wasn't single, so I don't know.
Right? I'm like, I only think of myself kind of like we just said as this codependent I can't imagine that being like, if Madeline and I just had our own apartment and we just like did whatever in our 20s. Like,
yeah, I can see myself being really fun. Like, I don't know, but then I can see myself being really out of control.
What would it have been like? Like, what if, you know what I mean? Like all the standard route is like, graduating from college and like living with your girlfriends and like starting that life and dating. I'm like,
I'm always envious of it. I'm like, damn, I wish I would have been living in New York, like single with like you or friends and like just dating casually and like.
Right. But we don't do casual, but
like
in theory, it would have been nice.
I mean, like dating in New York would have been cool. Like,
yeah, and especially in your younger years when you could have just met people in the wild way more easily too, right?
Yeah.
Where it wouldn't just be like I was on the apps. It's like I went to this bar and it was like, oh, there's all these people, and like I think about that
and
sometimes.
And I see this person, we smile at each other. Now we're dating because we just like had this chemistry, and it's like, what? Like, what is that like?
Yeah, what would it have been in our 20s?
I was 16. What was I doing? I was like, oh, he's cute. I mean, I remember the whole situation, and it's ridiculous. Like, somebody asked me who I thought was the hottest senior, and I was like, oh, this person's the hottest senior. And then somebody, like, told him, and yeah, you know the whole, but it's like, I
think about that a lot. It's like, instead of, as my Instagram algorithm said the other day, it's like, okay, in my 20s, I was doing wifey things.
Yeah.
So, like, now here I am in my 30s.
So this is something, too, that you can relate to. Like, I was 16 to 30, already in a wifey position, like caretaking, mothering, codependent, nagging, horrific, like, stereotypes that people say about women, which I hate. But, like, then I get single at, like, 34, 35. And I'm like, what? Like, I've already lived the life of a wife.
Right.
I don't want to be a wife. Like,
right.
I don't want to be, whatever we were talking about on the run, like, serving my man. Like, first of all, I don't believe in serving men. And, like, but I've done that. I've been that person as a codependent. I'm like, yes, I serve the man. Like, I take care of them. Like,
and I think we still do that, even when people press me all the time on, like, dating quote requirements of things. Like, it was a few weeks ago and someone was like, why did you require that? And I'm like, for me, it was my requirements. It was like, have a good job, like, own a home, like, things like some of them were loose, but it was like, I'm not looking for someone to take care of me and for me to serve them. No. I'm saying these are the things I have myself. So why wouldn't I ask that of any man? Like, I think if any man was saying, I don't think if any man was saying, like, I require that my potential suitor, like, have a good job and a career, I don't think they'd be like, that's kind of horrible. But it's like, but why is that not okay for a woman to ask that? Like, right? People really pressed me on there. Like, why did you want those things? I'm like, what did I want? Like a crumb bum?
I mean, I love crumb bums, but we all know this.
We know how it turns out. But, like, right? It's just like, I just think that that's crazy. Like, when it's like, why do you require those things? I'm like, why wouldn't I? Like, I don't want to serve anyone. I'm not saying, oh, no, can you do these things so I can do nothing?
Bring the same energy. And what that energy is, what you're talking about is you're meeting me at the table here to, like, come in as equal, like, equality, not, and sometimes it's like equitable, like, oh, maybe we're doing this and you're doing that, and like we add different things to the relationship. Right. It's not the exact same thing we're bringing to the table, but I'm like, these, like, my needs and boundaries, like, this part of me has to be met. Maybe you don't have the ideal job, or like you have kids and I don't, and you're doing X, Y, and Z, and maybe that wasn't a plan of mine. Or actually, you know what I actually compare it to? When I was buying a house, my realtor said to me, she's like, Madeline, when you buy this house, like, it needs to be a 7 out of 10. Like, not everything is going to be here. Not every item that your wish list is going to be, like, perfect here. And this is horrific.
We're not millionaires.
But, yeah. It's like, I'm not living in the baller house, and I don't have, like, every single, like, item in the house that I wanted. It's not perfect, everything. But it's like, okay, 7 out of 10, 70%. Okay, so then I started thinking about this with men. I was like, I think I need to approach relationships 7 out of 10. Because we're talking, like, maybe I was 2 out of 10. But, like, you know what I mean? But, like, core values are aligning. Like, for me, like, outdoor. Right. I sometimes joke with men. I'm like, I care more about you going on walks with me than I care sometimes about, like, I don't know, like, genuineness sometimes. Like, actually, that's
I just want you to go to Orange Theory with me.
That's what I mean. That's, like, the thing. Like,
I
don't give a shit if you didn't do the dishes today. Like, I care about this. But, like, some people might be like, that is such a thing for me. Like, I need you to do the dishes. I can't physically do it. And if you're not, I can't be with you. That's fine.
Okay. And that's to each their own.
But it's like that 7 out of 10. What are you willing to kind of, negotiate and, like, accommodate, like, compromise on? And what are things you absolutely will not compromise on? Walking with me is I will not compromise. And lying and cheating, not compromising.
But I think it's also interesting is that it's like, for me, I don't know why, but I think about, like, the money thing. I'm not asking for someone to be a zillionaire, but I think it's a thing where it's like, you and I have also, like, because we were wifey so early, it's like we've already had the experience of building a life with somebody, right? Going through, like, college, you have no money, graduating, first job, like, things like that. Like, building a life is that it's like, I don't want to build a life in terms of being like, oh, we have to be careful about, like, can we not eat out? Can we do these things? Like, I don't want to have to do that again. It's like, we've worked really hard to get where we are. It's like, I want to be like, hey, my friends invited us to Mexico. Like, let's go. Like,
yeah.
And that's, I think, the thing for me is like being so young and in a relationship, you're like, I've already done the things where I've been like, I don't know, I'll stay at the worst hotel, get the flight that's at 4 a.m. and blah. And it's just like, but I worked really hard to be able to do the things I want. As silly as it might sound, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I still, like, financially or, like, I don't know, I would still like to be in a different place because I'm
of course
a single person paying for everything. So, like, those things I still have to be like, okay, well, you have to wait. You can't buy this today.
Right.
But I'm also, like, I have an amazing life, like, and I built all of it. So, like, then I'm like, it's cool. You can.
And then if you budget, you're like, I can do that. Rather than
I just
somebody
have to
that's
wait.
Just like,
it's not going to be instant. Like,
Right. Rather than somebody that's like, I don't know, maybe I'll go back to school. Like, that's what these guys in Denver are saying. And I'm like, but you're 40. And like, you don't need to go to law school right now. Like, what?
Yeah.
You're going to take, I don't want to go to law school with you.
I've already been through it. No,
right?
Thank you.
It's like, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about.
I don't want to hold that space anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, can we be a little bit more settled or like driven into the career path?
Right.
Because now I'm 37. Like,
I don't want to be.
now
I'm
go
like so
broke again.
Then
like,
at 40, we're gonna be taking on $200,000 in loans together. I don't want to be I don't. No, thank you.
Like and student loans like mine are about to be paid off in 2 years.
No.
So I'm like, I can't. Even when I think about doctoral programs, I'm like, dude, no. Like I can't unless they're gonna pay me to be a part of the doctorate program. I get my PhD. Like, there's no way I'm taking on more debt. Like. And that's a realistic thing. Like, even when we were walking through the neighborhoods today and seeing how millennials, like, the barriers to us buying homes and the economy crashing and, like...
Twice. Twice.
And so many wars and everything that's happening in our country and globally, it's like, I'm in a space where I'm like, I can't go further into debt. Like, we know in our country how indebted our people are. I don't know if you think about this, I will walk around and be like, how are these people, like, I make a really good salary. How are these people just charge and buying. And I'm like, I can't buy any of this.
I know, every day.
I make this money.
I think about that. Like, right, when you look
Everyone's
at people
living
on
outside of their means.
Instagram and things like that, and I'm like, you have, I say this kind of stuff all the time. I'm always in shock when people, I'm like, okay, you have 3 kids. At least 2 of them are in daycare. So I'm like, so that's $3,000 a month. Your house looks... holy God, amazing. So I'm like, wait, just between daycare and your home, you're probably spending $6,000-$7,000 a month. And I'm like, let's say you both have really good jobs. You both make $200,000 a year. That's not enough for the lifestyle you seem to be living. So I don't understand, right?
Yeah.
Like that. People will be like, and the questions are like, oh, what's a superpower you wish you had? I'm like, you know what mine is? It's pretty lame. But it's like, I wish I knew everybody's like salary and net worth like above their head. Like
I need to see it.
A little Sims
I want to see
character.
the receipts. I need to see it.
I'm like, that would be amazing.
Or
be
statements, bank statements. I need to see your house, mortgage payments.
How did you buy it? Like, what's your interest rate?
Like, who gave you a trust fund? Like, did you have a trust fund? Because I didn't. I went to the 0% down program. Like,
that's what I'm saying. I'm like,
this?
I would love it above a Sims, like literally, like above the Sims character, and be like. 4-year education, paid nothing for it, or have loans, and then what my salary is, and it's like, what's your credit card debt? Like,
I'm literally.
What's in your retirement? Are you saving for retirement? Maybe you're not. I don't know, but I'm just like, I don't know. That's my superpower that I want.
Me too,
so
because I literally walk the earth every day. I'm not joking. Every scenario of a human I meet, I'm like, hey, how much do you think they make? Yes. Well, how much is their rent? I'm like, why are they going to dinner every week? And I start like,
wow, that
how much
clothing
money
all
this
looks
cost?
expensive. Like, how do you have this car? Like, what?
Because I'm like, shit. Like, I should have like turned up. Like, I thought I like killed it because I was like, I got a master's. I'm a school counselor, mental health therapist. Like, this is how much salary. And then I'm like, wait, you guys, I know I'm above the median wage in Spokane.
Yeah.
So how am I still living paycheck to paycheck every month?
Like, I drive a Subaru. You have a Honda. Like, I'm just like, what?
I don't have a G-Wagon. Like, I want
like, that's like literally, I think about that all the time, and I'm just like, how? Because it's not like I'm impoverished, but I still think like, should I go out to this dinner? Like, right?
Like, I freak out every day. I literally am calculating my budget every single day. I'm like, can you go buy that? Should you buy that? Like, because as an ADHD person, like, I'm impulsive, and I'm like, I need the dopamine right now. I need this. Yeah. Like, I feel it. I have to have it. Like, kind of like Marie Kondo. I'm like, it sparks joy in me. So, like, I must have it because life sucks. So I need the joy. Yeah. But I'm like, how is everyone else, like, not fucking stressed like me about money every day?
It's like, you seem very chill. Like,
do you think Americans are walking around all day just being fuck, oh, credit card? Because then I'm like, then you know that you're going further in debt, but you're avoiding.
Because there's the pressure to keep up. I think that's the thing where it's just like, okay, especially us, it's like going to a high school that's very affluent and stuff. And it's you look at the people that you haven't even talked to, right? But like seeing where they live and how they are. And it's like, I think that can, we know, like that can really get to people and being like, I'm behind, but I have a master. I'm doing great in comparison to what you know on paper. What is the percentage of people
that get a master's in our country? Like,
I think it's less than 5.
Because I really thought about this the other day. I'm like, well, think back to my cohort. There was like 8 of us just in that master's. And I'm like, so come on. Like, it's not just so.
No, because I think, and I can't remember, I learned at one point, but it was like, again, like the people that are surrounded by, like, it's the typical questions, like, where'd you go to college? Like, everybody went to college. But it's like, if you look at like the American population as a whole, I think like university degrees are like well under 50%, right?
Wow, they have to be.
Master's degrees are like under 5. All I know, it's like a PhD is like less than 1%, of course, because that's horrible. But like, yeah, you think about it and it's like, okay, this is like nobody. Like, I don't know how anybody's paying for it or doing it, or I don't even know why I went to grad school. I know why, but like, it was hard. It also sucked.
Really hard. Like getting through graduate school and like,
horrible.
Also, that's like, I didn't know I had ADHD at the time. My own mental health like was really in question during that time.
Did you listen to the recent We Can Do Hard Things with it's like an ADHD spokesperson.
Yeah.
She's amazing that she got diagnosed in law school.
Yeah, and I got diagnosed after graduate school, which is kind of crazy. Like, I didn't get that diagnosis till I was even out of my 14-year relationship. I was 30 years old when I got that. That's because we were supposed to go to couples therapy. Then I started seeing this neuropsych, and then he referred me to a psychologist within his practice, and he was like, dude, something's up. And what he kept telling me, because I was in that narcissistic abusive relationship, he's like, a lot of women who finally get that diagnosis and get medicated, like, can actually do their life intentionally. Like, they're not just, like, flailing
around.
Yeah, because what was happening was my brain is moving so fast, and, like, I couldn't slow down to, like, be intentional. Even, you can talk about mindfulness and breathing and, this brain is not, even doing meditation is so hard for me still, and I do it. But, like, he was like, eventually your brain's going to catch up, like, and then you're going to slow down enough to be like, oh,
what am I doing?
This sucks. Like, he said most women who get diagnosed with ADHD leave their relationships immediately after, because like something about knowing it and then getting medicated, like, totally shifts you. And I think that's crazy, because I'm like, actually was, waiting this long to know this diagnosis. Like, what if I would have known this? Like, I would have killed. I mean, I was essentially like, they had to make so many accommodations for me in grad and undergrad, because like I was flailing everywhere. Like, took forever to do papers and procrastinating and turning everything in late and crying and having panic attacks. And like, what? How did I get through graduate school?
10 years ago. Like way before.
In my 20s, early 20s. It's insane. But yeah, isn't that, I don't know, like the brain piece of like ADHD, like, I don't know. It's definitely a spectrum, but I think you can relate, because you were really good at holding your shit down, but I was not. Like
recently when talking about through like the OCD process with my therapist, because they're like,
and that makes way more sense to me, because I'm like, how do you, because you're not,
it's
I
like,
will literally
procrastinate,
blow my life up.
Have trouble getting things done, like, I'm way more the opposite, like, so type A, want a list, things like that, and it's like, just learning, I think, more about that, like, tendencies of, like, anxiety with, like, OCD, of, like, that makes so much more sense, like, being really particular, but then, being neurodivergent in terms of, like, I'm always like, why is that Instagram sound on with Reels? I'm like, it's too much, or, like, light's too bright, or whatever, but, like, those, like, classic, if you think about, like, the very classic ADHD or ADD symptoms, it's like, I have no trouble getting things done, like, I'm overly nuts about it getting done, actually.
And I am, and even people with ADHD are, but I almost have to feel pain, like almost like masochism. Like, I'm like, I have to be in pain to complete this task, and sometimes it hurts so bad to do a task, like I can't. Like, my house, like there's
Yeah,
certain
I start on it like early. I'm like,
just like I can't. It hurts me to do it because it's so adversive to me to like do this activity that I will
just avoid it
until, and it's like killing me. Like that's the difference I would say, because I'll just.
I'm like, it's killing me to not do it. Like me, like,
and I'm like,
truly,
it will kill me if I do it. Like, but then eventually it does do that to me, where I'm like, you have to do this now. Like you're so in pain. Like we have to fix this. Like, where you're not like, I don't know.
No.
Like I'm intrinsically
as soon as it pops in my head, we're doing it.
Well, sometimes that too. I'm like, I feel it. We're doing
very
it.
impulsive. Like,
Like it has to happen.
When it was
it's happening.
like ADHD, it was like ADHD impulsive. I'm like, yeah, because the literal quiz, like part of like the informal, conversational diagnosis piece, it was like, basically it was like having trouble letting people finish their sentences, and I didn't even let her finish that sentence. I was like, yes, like when she said having trouble people, yep. And she's like, okay.
I already know what you're thinking. I'm going to say it for you.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
I'm impulsive.
And also because I can't even wait. I'm like, shut up. I know what you're going to say. I already know.
That's like the worst. I'm like, can you stop talking? Like, this story's taking a long time when I already know what's happening. I know the resolution.
I know the story. We know the end. Okay. I can't waste any more time. That's going to make me have a panic attack.
Like, stop.
That's the worst. I'm like, oh, dude, dating me for that. Like, you're just like, like interrupting, finishing sentences.
I'm like, I'm not doing this on purpose. I just interrupt. Yeah, I think it's because I'm like, because I already know what you're going to say. And I don't care.
Such a bad tendency. They're just like, you're speaking for me though.
Yes. Like, because it's too slow and irritating.
You're just like, nope, I have to because I'm bored.
You're not speaking for yourself.
Yeah. I mean, would you say now they're saying you don't have ADHD, or are they saying it's like, they're kind of shifting to OCD or wow, that's interesting.
And not OCD, like ADHD, anything. It's like, right, it's a spectrum. And so they're like, really, I think a lot of the anxiety pieces can manifest as like OCD pieces, but not like that typical OCD thing. But when I was talking the other week to my, I think it was my psychiatrist, and she was like, I was just basically saying like, okay, I have certain things I have to do like before bed, like stupid things. Like, okay, I need my chapstick, I need whatever. And she's like, what would if I were to say like, you couldn't have that? And I was like, that is not.
Like
that's
you
not
said
an
like
option.
If you didn't have toothpaste, or what were you saying? If I didn't have a floss, like I'd be driving to the store immediately.
Yes.
And I was like, I'd probably she's like, fuck it.
Yeah, she's like, what if I told you like just couldn't get floss? And I was like, that's honestly not even a possibility, like in my head. Like
this is why you're not doing the Peace Corps.
Yeah, I'm like, floss, I'm out. Like
you have no floss. No water.
Yeah. Like relegated to like 1 cup of water a day. But like, yeah, and she was just, when she posed that question, she's like, what if I told you you couldn't get floss tonight? And I was like,
then it's done.
I won't be sleeping. Like, I'd probably try to put a piece of paper between my teeth. I don't know.
You're like taking cloth, like strings out of your shirt to floss your teeth.
My hair, like
no!
I'm just
that
like,
gold chain necklace.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't understand the question because I will be flossing.
They're just like, but no. What if there's no access?
I'm like, well, if I go to a third world country and there's not floss, I would have made sure I packed it because I wrote my list before I packed.
Yeah. And I would have had I would have counted the days I was there and how many months I would need floss and how long the string was and calculated it down.
And then a few extra.
Yeah, they're like, wow, okay, no.
They're like, but if all of that, like if you just didn't have floss, I'm like, nope, again.
That's not ever an option. I'm like, that is the difference with ADHD. I'm like, oh yeah, like that doesn't really matter. I didn't even think of that. Or like, oh yeah, that's weird. Like, that could be a big deal. It's like, too late, though.
No, I'm like, instead, she's put in my mind, like, what if there's no floss? I'm like, well, now I'm stressed about not having floss in a fake scenario.
Yeah, like, now I'm planning for not having floss, and I'm going to bring it everywhere because you just planted a seed of doubt, and I'm freaking out. Yeah, ADHD, I'm like, floss? Oh, yeah, that thing. Like, that's weird. No. Yeah, and, like, I'll be on a consistent, and I'll be like, oh, I forgot about that routine I had. Like, I'm bored of that, so I'm on to a new routine, and everyone's like, you're not freaking out about your routine? I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot one day I'm into yoga for 3 months and I'm like killing it. And then I'm like, oh, that was boring. I'm done. Like, or you're like, I'm doing Orange Theory every day and we're going to just stay with this for the rest of my life till death. And I'm like, yeah, that sucked. It hurt my heels. So I'm kind of done with that. It was boring. Like,
yeah, how's your heel brace?
Dude, fucking hell. Except I ran, the other day. I ran.
And walked.
And I just walked
a 12K.
miles. Yeah. But I feel like at the end of this, by the time we get home, it's like,
oh, yeah.
walked
Because we're getting
12
margaritas, and then like it's really gonna be
Cinco de Mayo
a day.
Bloomsday, you guys, and we're recording a podcast.
Do you see how cloudy it is right now? It's so, at least it stopped raining, but coldest Bloomsday on record.
I know, that's what's so crazy.
My first Bloomsday.
Yeah. Also, as we wrap this episode up, because we actually almost are about to hit an hour, isn't that crazy? Hilary grew up here, but doesn't live here, but maybe is looking at buying a house here. I don't know. And I love seeing Spokane, you know, people come back to this land and like invest in being in this community, because I love Spokane, but I always talk about me being in an abusive relationship with it, like hate, love, push, pull. Yeah. And I'm also toxic in this relationship, because I'm like, fuck, I'm gonna stay, but every day I think about leaving you.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, what is it? Like, what other city has a slogan of like, X city doesn't suck? Like,
or
only Spokane.
My favorite is keep Spokane a little gross.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, that's a slogan here, and I'm like, yeah, it's a little nasty. Like, we should keep it a little gross. It can't ever be that cute. Like, it's got to be a little weird here.
But it's crazy. Like, the older you get, like, and I don't know if this is like, you know, you'll typically ask people like, what are your thoughts on Spokane or advice?
Well, yeah, that's how we're gonna end. I'm about to ask you that question, like your advice to Spokane, what you feel about Spokane, what you would say to the Spokane people.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I appreciate is being older and having lived in a big city, right? Having lived in Denver for 10 years, right? Is that's like the small town vibes, but not like, I mean, there's a downtown, but it's like, but the fact that like downtown is very walkable, even from like where we grew up. It's like, you wouldn't just be like, oh, I'm casually downtown, but it's like, it takes less than 10 minutes. It so
could
close.
Be casual,
right? But it's
no one
so
wants
close.
To walk here,
right?
I'm always walking around and people look at me like I'm insane.
Yeah.
But
it's
I'm
like everything is like walkable, but yet Spokane.
No one's walking though.
No. But like it's the whole downtown and things like that. It's like everything's walkable. There is everything you need. Like, I mean, now there's like bigger brands. I was just telling my partner yesterday about like, I remember when Abercrombie and Fitch first came here and there was no Old Navy and it came to the Valley Mall.
River Park Square was built.
Yeah, and was like, oh my God, I can get my cool Abercrombie shirts. But like, that's the thing I appreciate. It's like small town vibes, but like still has everything you need and want. I think it's shitty like that it's tough to get to. Like the airport, they have all the billboards like 20 nonstop locations, and I'm like, 20?
Yeah, you've gotten
that's
spoiled,
literally nothing.
Though.
Yeah.
Because you're in Denver, like the hub of like, is everything. It Delta or
United.
South? Oh, United. Yeah, it's like, so you're in a hub, like where here it's like, you're going to take 20 transfers to get to that city, like on your way to like a 2-hour distance.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
You're going to stop.
Just drive there. But
sometimes I just do because I'm like, screw this.
I do appreciate also how Spokane has a lot of people, and I don't know if it's just like seeing it through your eyes as an adult. It's like people who aren't just like straight up from here, like people who are open to it and like seeing Spokane in a different way, rather than I feel like where we grew up or the people we knew, it was like very insular, and I don't know one person whose parents weren't just like straight from Spokane, you know what I mean, or had been here like a really long time.
Yeah, it was very what is that, like that kind of incestual? Yeah. Like, I don't know, everyone's like knows each other, we all grew up together, we like all like, yeah, everyone has each other's backs. It's a weird place if you're different, like, and grow up kind of poor, or like, I talk about that a lot, like just being like low income growing up here, like not a part of the political,
like we didn't have a lake cabin
scene.
Like, you know, that kind of stuff where it was like people go to the lake, people do this, and it was like, what?
I think that's been it's weird seeing my parents, like my mom, like the shift from poverty to like, and like now my parents like have invested more in being here, but I don't know, it's just like, like if you're at all different, like, it's just really, really hard.
So I just think those are the things I think as you get older, you appreciate about Spokane, and like, again, just seeing it from a way of like people who have moved here and the things that they appreciate about this place, rather than us, you know, being jaded and being from here and like, oh, that sucks, or this, that, or the other thing. And I think Spokane obviously still has a long ways to go in terms of like, I basically, when people are like, oh, where are you from? I basically tell people, I'm like, I'm from Idaho, because like the mentality and the thought process of that. If you say Washington, people think you're from Seattle, and it's like, you have to explain all that away. So I think, you know, Spokane has a long way to go in terms of like inclusivity and I mean, recognizing like the land that they're, you know, all of that stuff is like, we are we are like Northern Idaho. The KKK headquarters is 20 minutes away.
Yeah.
I think Spokane has a long way to go in that, but I think the whole country has a long way to go in that.
Yeah.
I'm not coming from a really open, diverse place of Denver. Denver's just only white people too. So it's not like I come from a progressive place, but like seeing that now and seeing the things that are important to me, like it's just all things I consider differently.
So what would you kind of like wish for the Spokane people, or like advice that you would give them, I guess? Like, get out of here is what I always say. and then come back.
Get out and come back. Yeah. Like get out and have like that worldview or have that perspective of like outside. It's like, because even though there are really great things about Spokane, but I think that's everywhere. I think the places now that I've lived in multiple different places, it's like, that's everywhere. You have to like leave to appreciate. And I think there's a lot of people here that have never left.
And then they hate on it too, which is funny. They're
right.
like, go.
And then, but it's like you've never left, and so you just think this is the best, and this is like all you know. And so like you also aren't critical of anywhere that's the only place you've been. It's like, oh, I've been to these other places and I've been exposed to this, and so maybe there is some criticism here. And I think that's part of things that people are missing, because it's like people don't just, I feel like, land in Spokane on purpose.
Yeah. No. I mean, well, I don't know. It seems like people are choosing now more than ever to move up here, but that wasn't like historically. No. Like even my family, how they got here was not. No. Like it was something else.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, just being open, and I think Spokane probably too, like, prides itself on being like this insular place and being small and being a certain size. And I think if Spokane were to like grow, I think like exorbitantly. I mean, you see all the new buildings, the apartments, and I think people would not be for that. You know, they want to hold it as their own thing.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
And I think that's interesting.
Yeah. It is.
But that's not a bad thing. Growth is not a bad thing, and differing ideas and things like that. But I think people would be like, but it's Spokane. It has to stay this way.
Yeah. And it's like, no, it has to change. And people are really, really resistant to that change. And I can tell, like, but I've seen huge, like, our city council, mayor, like, just politically how Spokane used to be so conservative growing up has shifted significantly since, our whole life. And just, I always say it's hard to even get behind, like, a lot of the organizing with protesting here. Like, even though I want to, like, sometimes Spokane has a hard time, like, building community and, like, organizing events. And I'm like, but I'm part of the problem because I'm not like investing in it either. So like, I don't know. I go back and forth with it, but
the cycle of change, you've recognized the.
I see it every day.
Yeah, so you're recognizing it.
Yeah.
But I just want to say, like, I'm really proud of you for like being in Spokane and like having a totally different life here than I think, I don't want to say conditioned to have, but like being from where we are in the South Hill and all that. It's like you were kind of on the track to one life if you didn't actively seek differing thoughts, opinions, people, things like that. And I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think I had to be really intentionally like removed myself from a lot of people we grew up with here, and like found people that are like minded and then just like chameleon it to like fit into like the norm of what we knew. Yeah. I remember being so afraid of like ending up living like blocks away from Jefferson, like a bunch of people did that we went to high, and like being in the same friend group and producing our kids to be in the same friend group. And I was like, ugh, I don't want to perpetuate this narrative. Like I have to remove myself and intentionally go away from this lifestyle because I don't agree with it. And it's nothing even against the people. It's more like, I just don't. It's not bad. It's just not for me.
Right. It's not bad. It's just, if we bring this full circle, it's like, but that was easy. Like we talked about our relationship before. It's not bad. It wasn't bad, but it's just easy. And to like push yourself to do something different, I think is really hard.
Yeah. Well, we're at the end. We actually hit an hour and 3 minutes.
Look at us go.
Well, we gotta go because we gotta get LK.
Tacos.
We have not eaten. We just ran 7.5 miles.
We had Snickers.
I took a bite of a Snickers. I haven't even finished it yet. We're probably dehydrated. So.
Cinco de Mayo. We're going to get margaritas.
Yeah. So
it's gonna be amazing.
Tune into Hilary. Her podcast episode will be on all the major platforms: Spotify, Apple. And it's so awesome to have my best friend since 14 on the podcast that this all kind of stemmed from. And we just literally scheduled and we're like, let's go right after Bloomsday.
Parlaying Bloomsday in between drinking, and that's great.
Promise nobody else is doing this day because nobody booked it. So anyways, thank you for listening, and till next time.